you. Yeah, thanks so much for having me here today. And my name is Fixmer-Oraiz. It's really close, Olivia, don't worry. And I am the CEO and founder of Astig Planning. And we are hired by Johnson County I am hired as the project manager. Originally started out as a planner that helped put together the 10-year master plan in 2016, which I'll talk a little bit about today to kind of orient you to the site. But yeah, excited to be here. So I'm just gonna share my screen. I have a few slides just to, keep it Zoom friendly. As we are in like a year and a half of Zoom here. So let's see, view, present. Yeah, that's what I was looking for, present. Okay. So yeah, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be here. It's really cool, the Soil Water Conservation Society. You are all cool people. I feel like every time I'm at a conference and I'm like hanging out with cool people, it turns out they're like Soil and Water Conservation Society folks. So yeah, awesome folks. So thanks for having us here today. I kind of wanted to start off with just a little bit of history, in terms of what is the poor farm. Of course, I'm having technical difficulties, but I wasn't sure if everybody knew what a poor farm was. I find that in Iowa, a lot of people, they have stories of like, their parents or grandparents telling them if they disobey, they'll get sent to the poor farm. I'm from the coast, so I never heard of a poor farm before I moved here. So it is essentially, it was started in the second quarter of the 19th century, migrated from Europe over to the United States as a system for public health. So how do we take care of people who don't have anywhere to go, don't have a lot of money, or are widowed, or have physical, mental disabilities? So they created the poorhouse system. And it actually, started in New York and made its way across the West. And so you can see Illinois, Missouri, but Iowa was actually as far west as it made it. And so then sort of policy reform started happening. And the idea was, you get people out on the farm and they have breathing fresh air and they're kind of doing work and doing that kind of stuff that would be better for them than it would be to kind of put them in some sort of, prison system or something. So that was kind of the idea. And then policies started changing, kind of around the mid 19th century to different types of policies for taking care of different kinds of folks, such as, the schools for the deaf and blind and things like that started evolving. So in Johnson County, we actually have the historic poor farm here. I just wanted to give you an aerial image so you can see kind of 218, it's along there, and then it's south of I-80. It is on the edge of Iowa City, but it's in Iowa City limits owned by Johnson County. So, and then it's also in the listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So that means an awesome amount of bureaucracy if you want to do anything on the farm that's having to do with buildings or roadways or anything like that. But it's really well serviced though, in terms of people being able to access the site. It grew and it shrank throughout the years. It's now 168 acres. At one point it was 220. So it's kind of grown and morphed over the years. And in 2016, myself and Jason Grimm from Iowa Valley RC&D, we were hired by the county to do a master plan. And we really did it in kind of 3 phases. The first was to just like gather all of the information because it's a historic poor farm. There's a lot of history there, but things tend to disappear or stories are broken. Oftentimes families don't realize, where, their aunt or their cousin or somebody went. Some of the documentation is just not there. And there were a lot of ideas and a lot of articles. And, so we try to gather all that information together, put it in a report, identify what are some opportunities here based on what the Johnson County Board of Supervisors really wanted to highlight, which was, education, conservation, recreation, historic preservation. And as we kind of move through that process, We talked with professionals, conservationists, historic preservation professionals to just get what is possible out here, given that there are existing structures that are falling down. There at the time was 114 acres that was row cropped, and what are some of the possibilities? And Jason Grimm and Iowa Valley RC&D had already been out there for a couple years doing some nonprofit work, doing Grow Johnson County, and having their food sent to the food pantries and things like that. So there was some excitement around what could happen on the farm. And the supervisors, as I said, they kind of had their ideas, and we worked very closely with them to understand, what really they wanted on the farm. And you can see here kind of their top 10. Conventional farming, I just want to say that person's no longer on the board. Everything is politics. And so, yeah, typically I just cut this down to 5. But you can kind of see that top 6 is really where we focused a lot of our time and energy. And as we did kind of, word cloud, history, food, local people, those are the things that people use to describe the historic poor farm and what they envision. This is the eventual prototype that we came out with, and there's a lot on here to absorb. But essentially it's things like trails, prairie, keyline swales, rotational grazing. Hopefully the city will let us do it. We had a lot of buildings that we needed to upgrade. This is basically like everything in the kitchen sink that we could think of. The supervisors were like, that sounds awesome. So we were very fortunate in that. And you'll see that there is some proposed development on the southwest side. There's just a lot in here, hence a 10-year master plan. And we are currently in year 3 of that, headed into year 4. So it's been a lot of work. This is just, Jason's going to talk a little bit more about this, but I just kind of wanted to give some visuals, and I apologize if Jason provides these as well. But these are the kinds of things that the supervisors really gravitated towards. They wanted to have an experience of different ecosystems as people walked through the historic port farm. So you could walk by people that were organically farming, or you could walk by, prairie, or, there's wetlands, that hopefully there's grazing, so that you could walk through. There's nowhere really in the area that you can do that. And so that was very exciting. The historic building complex is really where our focus has been in the last 3 or 4, I don't know, it feels like 10 in COVID, but for the past, since the beginning of the master plan implementation, we've been focusing on upgrading these buildings, making things accessible. Because of the history of the historic port farm, we found that actually the disability community is very strong and visits this site the most. And it's because, they feel a connection to it. This is where their people are from. We do have an asylum on site, and it's the oldest existing port farm building in the state. It's essentially a jail cell. It has about 8 cells, and after they kept people in it, they kept hogs. And so it's a really intense emotional experience that you can have amidst all of this, like, agricultural setting and things like that. So there's a lot going on at the farm, is kind of what I want to stress here. We've got local food, we've got history, and we really do have a disability first mentality. So everything is accessible. Everything is really looking at, can people actually get here? Can they park? Can they walk? Can they get into the buildings? Things like that. Oops, wrong way. Jason will talk about the cropland phasing, but that was obviously a big part of this. 160 acres, and about 120 of it is really, is basically open for agricultural uses. This is, as I said, we had 3 phases. The first phase, the second phase is done. We've talked with a bunch of people. We've got it all down. If you want to see these plans, they're actually in the Johnson County website. And we also have a Johnson County Historic Port Farm website. The county has really invested a lot of funding into this. It's well over $2 million at this point. And I just wanted to give you a sense of, conservation is in here, and that, that's just the first 5 years. After that, there's much more that goes into it as well. But a lot of focus on historic preservation, trails, and preserving the buildings. We've done a lot of work out here. It's kind of amazing to think, over the past 5 years, that now we've got signage, we've got this 15.5-acre prairie. People are starting to come out more and more. We do like bike tours that come through with like hundreds of people. So there's a lot of potential for folks to come through the site as well. I wanted to just highlight the mission of the farm is to provide a public space for connecting to the land and local history through inclusive and community-led opportunities. And that was really important, and it was developed by people that are there on the farm and our stakeholders, that we have, again, that inclusivity, but that connection. People really do feel a connection, and that it is community-led. And the supervisors actually were very strongly in favor of it being community-led opportunities. So people want to do education, they want to partner, they want to, like that, those opportunities are available. And these are just some of the folks that have come through. Like I said, the bike tour that we did in the rain, bless those people. And yeah, people out on the farm looking at the historic buildings. I think really this is kind of what Olivia actually wanted me to talk about, which was our community engagement. And so as a planner by training, I was very invested in like, what is our community connection? And so we developed a community action team, and that was actually about 70 organizations from around the county coming together and just really identifying what are some of the gaps in services or opportunities that they provide to their stakeholders, that they don't provide, that the Poor Farm could. So, there's opportunities for education, or, people identify like cooking classes or having, events out here, and access to growing food or whatever that may be. Those folks come together and we talk about what are some of the activities, what are some of the programs that could come out. We're not fully implementing that yet because we're not done with the infrastructure improvements, but in the next year and a half, we probably will be fully implementing some programmatic and educational components. We also have a disability advisory committee that provides feedback on all of these improvements and reviews documents. One thing that's really incredible about that group is that they state that they want to be 60% people with disability versus 40% able-bodied people on that committee. And they really think that that is just a way for them to be true to the actual experience of being a differently abled person and being able to speak to the needs of their community. So both really incredible groups to work with. Obviously over COVID, we really struggled to meet, but I'm hopeful in the next year that we'll be able to gather again and continue working together. We have a historical resources group. As I had mentioned, the history of the Poor Farm, people don't exactly know much about like if relatives went there or not, or, where their stuff went, or, there's a lot of, I think because of the stigma attached to it, there's a lot of question marks. And so we are very fortunate in this area that we have a historical society, a genealogical society, we have historians, and people are really excited about what's going on here. So we actually have a group of folks that meet about twice a year so far that are looking at, how can we identify the bodies in the cemetery? How can we understand, because there's actually, an unmarked cemetery on site. What are some of the events that could take place to honor the history? And, are there artifacts that people know of? How do we gather those, and where do they go? Are they on the farm or at the Johnson County Historical Society? So a really key group of folks that come together. Of course, we have our land access program, and I'm sure Jason will talk more about this, but this is about 10 or so acres. It might actually be a little bit more. I apologize, Jason knows. But that is a program that the county wanted to put together to provide essentially land access to farmers. And I'll let Jason talk more about that. But it's a really successful program in its third growing season. We have from that a farm tenant advisory committee, and that's not just the land access program tenants, but also the community food production area. So we do have 2 nonprofits on site. Iowa Valley RC&D runs their grow program, and then we also have I See Compassion has their Global Food Project so they host like community gardens for their members that are immigrants. And so basically this committee is open to all tenants, and it's an opportunity for tenants to meet and discuss kind of across sectors here. We have, farmers that are farming, a couple acres, and then we have community gardens, and we have tours going on of the historic buildings. So there's a lot to coordinate, and it's an opportunity to check in and see what's working, what's not, where can the farm management staff help. And a lot of that information actually does make it to the Board of Supervisors, whether that's the farm management team or actual members from the farm tenant committee. I also just want to give a shout out to all of I couldn't even really list all of them, and I definitely couldn't do a logo shout out because it'd be several pages long. But as you can see, I mean, we are really, embarrassed by the amount of, nonprofit agency jewels that are in the area that are really engaged and invested in so many different areas, whether that's conservation, historic preservation, recreation. As you can see, Johnson County Soil and Water Conservation District, we've actually worked grants with them. So yeah, just a really, really rich, as you said, gem in the community. And that's all I really have for today. I could talk for really days and days about the Poor Farm, but I can leave it open for some questions and stop sharing my screen. There we go.
So if anybody has any questions for V about the Johnson County Poor Farm, you can even just put them in the prompt and I can read them to her if that works the best way, V, for you.
I got it. Actually, I can see the questions coming. If I miss some, definitely help me out. But
perfect. Yep.
Yeah, thanks for putting our company website on there. And yeah, so the question is what is the age group of those involved? Right now, we have a lot more adults, but I know that Iowa Valley RC&D runs some programs, I think probably mostly high school, but we did meet with the Iowa City Community School District. I guess that was maybe 3 months ago, in the COVID times, but we are working on getting school-age children out. And first is to get teachers out and then see if they can build some curriculums to bring their students out. So yeah, that's, I mean, other than events, we also have Take a Kid Outdoors, TACO. They do like their pumpkin carving stuff out here. So then we get like, tons of kids running around and hay bales and stuff. And then the older folks actually, I don't know, I'd say usually like master gardeners that come out, they got their tomato patches and stuff like that. We're going to be rolling out some more accessible like food production areas, so like raised beds and things like that to kind of help folks, again, just with the disability focus. We're really looking at accessibility. So right now, one of our big projects, infrastructure projects, is getting in some sidewalks and parking. So we're looking forward to some more access. Yeah, multi-generational, absolutely, 100%. And we also have other projects that are going on. Like we're looking into commercial kitchen out here, which would be really advantageous. Obviously, you could, grow some food and then can some food, or hold a class on canning or whatever. But then there's also a wellness trail that's slated to go out here as well. And we were just talking with Chant Ike over at Impact 7G yesterday. Impact 7G is putting together our natural areas master plan. It's a 7-year master plan. And so we're doing a lot of cool work with like edibles, and we have some, oaks out there. And so it's really exciting. That master plan is very exciting and should probably be out and hot off the presses next month. So definitely keep an eye out for that. What steps would someone need to be part of the communities you discussed? So actually on the, I'll put this, JC Historic Poor Farm website, there's an opportunity to sign up, essentially. So you can sign up to be a part of the community action team and it essentially sends an email to me or Jason, and we just add you to the listserv. So yeah, it's pretty easy. Like I said, with COVID, it's not, nobody's really met in the last year, but hopeful about the next year.